So let's look at styles of mobility and their application. Now, just like martial arts, there are so many different types of mobility or yoga prescriptions or types that we can do. For the sake of our course today, we're going to look at three types that are very popular, and I'll explain where you might have seen them. Some of them you might have already done without knowing them, and the purpose and application for each one. The first one is what we would call power or a flow, or what's referred to as yang or yang, depending on the tonation that you want to use. And that is traditionally more used as a warm-up. Excites the nerve, or can excite the nervous system. It gets the heart rate up, gets blood flowing to the muscles, and wakes you up. These are are also considered a flow, or what's called in the yoga world vinyasa. So vinyasa, flow. A little learning for you there. I love to use these with clients or athletes when I'm coaching a CrossFit class as a great warm-up. And the reason being is that you're moving from pose to pose, and we'll get into what those poses look like in later videos, in a real flow or a real vinyasa. And the intent there is to excite the client. Maybe excite's not the perfect word, but yeah, excite the nervous system, get them ready for the session, and just feel good and moving in the body. So that's the first one. That's we can call that yang, which I'll refer to. The second one is the opposite. And if you're familiar with, if you look at it as like white and black, or like the famous Tao symbol, would be yin. So you have yang, which is the first one, and then we have yin, which is the second one, and they're total opposite. So as I said, if the yang was more exciting, uplifting, powerful, strength-based, the yin is the opposite. If you could think of it as masculine versus feminine. And the yin, the whole intent behind that is we want to downregulate. We want to calm the nervous system down. We want to calm the breath rate down. We want to bring the body temperature down and bring the body closer to a state of rest. Examples of this would be poses that are passive. So that's another good delineation between the two. Yang is active, yin is passive. Very simple, right? White, black, masculine, feminine. Passively held poses for extended periods of time, anywhere between, I think for a good dose is 60 seconds, and you could hold these poses upwards to 5 minutes, 10 minutes, which might sound crazy, but the practicality of that is immense. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One just being allowing the musculature and the fascia and the tissues to really just relax. And sometimes a 30-second stretch isn't going to do that. If you consider, if you take an athlete, for example, or like I had mentioned in the earlier videos, a professional sitter, think about what you're going up against, right? We spend, myself included, so much of our life in these positions that tend to make us tighter or make the musculature stiffer. So if we're going to prescribe something to do the opposite of that, it would just make sense that we would want it to be for a longer time domain. For my coaches out there, if you could think about when we prescribe longer, think like aerobic work prescriptions or the MAP work, if you're familiar with the terminology, usually a big reason for that is we weren't trying to teach our clients patience. So taking that same idea, the yin is a great tool and a great practice to help teach not only ourselves, but our clients and our athletes patience and being okay with being still and getting them connected to their breathing and just getting them to be more contemplative. So as you can see, the yin and the yang are these two drastically different approaches, but in my opinion, both are important for our prescriptions. And we'll go more into the yin in a little bit. So you have, to just go over the three, so far we have the first one is the yang, the second one is the yin, and then the third one, which falls a little bit more on the yin side, is what's called restorative. You may have seen or heard of restorative yoga. So restorative yoga. And the difference between restorative and yin is that restorative uses a prop, And that prop can be a wall, that prop can be a yoga block, that prop can be a chair, it can be, what else? I mean, if you're doing it in the gym, a sandbag, right? But if you're in a more traditional yoga studio, they have these yoga cushions, blankets. And the difference between yin and the restorative, like I mentioned, is you're using the external object to help ourselves, to help the client really just kind of let go. And that might sound like a nebulous term, but to release tension. And sometimes I find, not only for myself, but for students and clients, even if we try to get into a yin type posture, which could be, just to give you a pose, it's called pigeon pose, which is pretty well known. Basically, is where the shin is just like this, actually. This is like a pigeon pose right here. And you sit in the pose. Some people have a hard time just sitting and relaxing in the pose, whether for so many reasons. Where the restorative option really helps is you're basically making yourself comfortable, and you're trying to get into this optimal position to allow the tissue, the muscles, the joints, to really just let go and to totally relax. And we'll get more into the detail of where these belong and how we would orchestrate all three of these. But just something for you to think about and take away is at the end of a training session, you could maybe write 10 minutes and sit, with your legs against the wall, eyes closed, deep breathing, set a timer, enjoy it. And I loved that for myself, and I can't tell you how many people enjoy that as a way of de-stressing and down-regulating their nervous system. So just to recap, the 3 styles of yoga that we're going to dive into in this course: the yang, or the active, or the vinyasa, which means flow; the yin, or the feminine, or the more softer approach; and then the restorative. And the difference between the yin and the restorative is the restorative uses external objects and props to support the poses.